Welcome, everybody. Greetings. Thanks for joining us. My name is jaqs. In Blackfoot, that would be Nisto need to be jaqs. I'm calling in from Treaty 7 territory, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is comprised of Gaina, Siksika, Piikani, and Tsuut'ina. Gaina and Piikani and Siksika. Treaty 7 also is comprised of the Stoney Yithaka Nakota, the Tsuut'ina, and Districts 4 and 5 of the Métis. I am an uninvited guest of Filipino ancestry from the islands of Panay and Leyte, which are colonially known as the Archipelago of the Philippines. I was born in Tijoge, colonially known as Montreal, unceded territory of the Gahaga, and I am continually learning what it means to be in relationship to the people whose lands I benefit from as a settler, as an arrivant, and which lands and the lands that my family also left. So reconciliation is more than a land acknowledgement, as we know, and it is a relationship to the nations we acknowledge, their histories, as well as being in good relationship to treaty, as we all are treaty people here. At minimum, please read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report. And there's also a link here, nativeland.ca, if you would like to know whose lands you're on. And also reading the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's final report, Calls to Justice, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is also a guide in understanding what our relationships mean. So thanks for coming to this event. It was a great initiative to understand what does fake news mean and why and who benefits from it. So like to start out with the intention of informing ourselves with fair, just, objective sources to help us make informed decisions as citizens, as family members, as parents, as teachers, as well as consumers and community members, because I think we rely on what we read and consume on a daily basis, and that line of what's real and not is blurring very easily these days. So that's what inspired this event. Also a conversation with my uncle, because I think it's really hard to, like, while we all have good intentions, how do we distinguish what is guiding our conversations and what we believe? So this event was organized by the Unlearning Channel, the podcast that you're going to be listening to, as well as the Cultural Instigators, which with major support from Iman Bukhari at the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. She's helping us with the back end, as well as Whiteboard Copy Company. And we are supported by Inside Out Theatre. And this is funded by the Calgary Arts Development Authority. And the Unlearning Channel started out as a project through Community Wise Resource Center's Anti-Racist Organizational Change Project. I started it out with Mel VX as a co-host. And if you wanted to check out the rest of the episodes, please find us on iHeartRadio. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Saffana Monajed. Saffana Monajed is an award-winning marketer, a copywriter, and comm strategist. She's the director of Whiteboard Copy Co., where she specializes in transforming messaging for charities and NGOs. An educator at heart, she is passionate about teaching media literacy and ensuring we are careful about the media we consume. Welcome, Saffana.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Okay, let's get right into it. So what is fake news and why is it so prevalent?
Tough question to start off with, because it's actually not a binary, because I feel like to say that it's fake news assumes that this may be new or a kind of new thing. It's just, I think, the catchiest title for news that we should maybe be more wary of. I think previously what's happened in all things news and media, it's been a concoction, right, of other people's perspectives of life. And then that's been what's funneled to us, the mainstream mass consumers. And so recently, I guess what's happened with the discovery of even the words fake news is that there seems to be like an implicit binary, that before this it was all real and it was all perfect and everyone was getting the right message, and then now we're getting this quote unquote fake news. But really all it is we're now inundated with so much information that creating stuff that is less attuned with reality is just a little bit easier to create stuff that's not so in tune, and then it's a little bit harder to spot. So it's kind of like fire met gasoline. And now we're in this era where we have to just use the platforms that allow us, ironically, to have as much access to this fakeness as possible to realize how to see right through it. And that's hopefully what today is about.
So I guess where's the basis of this, where it became something to be concerned about? Because maybe there was a moment where we trusted news.
That's a really good question. I think for as long as it's been privatized in the countries where they can co-opt a narrative, it's been a thing to be met with skepticism at best, right? Like if we're being super, super honest, it's not that news was always on our side, right? So there's been this real big effort to own as much news and media outlets by those who own huge amounts of capital, because the line is pretty much like a flawless strategy, if you will, right? If you own enough stuff, people are going to want to take it from you, because usually if you owned it, you did some kind of exploitation to own it. So you want to protect yourself, and then it makes sense to then hide yourself behind anything that you can. And a really good way to do that is to own as much news outlets and media and things that entertain people as possible, and then co-opt a narrative around people who are in a geography you want to control. And it just so happens that we now call this news and media and marketing. So it's not necessarily that we've trusted media back when. It's just now the masks of everything are coming off, and people are asking much smarter questions because the dominoes are starting to fall. So less how come we don't trust the news anymore. It's more, how do we discern what's happening based on who's telling us what, and where does reality and truth fit into this, and how can we almost protect ourselves from this fake news, but to always do it in air quotations, because it's not a novel thing, right? It's a thing that's just happened as long as the capital has been where the capital is, right?
Truly. So the inertia or interest in having a conversation like this, it has intrigued me for more than 2 decades, 3 decades, because it is often who has ownership, who creates narratives that shape what we believe as history, as the truth, and what also shapes our education systems. Coming from a Filipino context, like living here on Treaty 7 territories, I didn't even know that I grew up next to Sutina, which was like in my back, like 5 blocks away from my house when I was a kid. And that is very much intentional. So how, and then having a conversation with my uncle, I'll just bring that up because about, we'll say it, like Trump, I'm bringing that up really quickly, but in shaping the current climate of how much we are bombarded constantly by competing forces, competing narratives for our attention. And that causes a lot of confusion, causes a lot of anxiety, and disorientation, and possibly throwing us off track of, if you're in advocacy, it could throw you off of where you're headed. And because there are multiple competing reasons to fight for something, and also understand something at a deeper level. So how do you navigate what is shaped by media bias, if we can get into that?
This is a really good question. It's actually the advice I give everyone else because it took me almost a decade to figure this out. I'm going to tell you point blank. So the only reason I'm where I am is because I used to work in media. So I used to be in the offices that used to be like, whose attention can I grab, essentially? Whose attention can I buy to get them to act or do or think or believe something? And I, little old me, 10 years ago, a well-intentioned person in an office would be like, well, lucky for you, I have a maths degree and I can tell you down to a postcode exactly where those eyeballs live, especially if they're not white British, because we have this thing called the census in the UK that you get to fill in every 10 years. And so we know where everyone lives down to a postcode, if specifically they class themselves as non-white British. And so eventually I start reading and I'm like, isn't it so odd that we can give a specific message to someone based on whatever it is we want it to be based on? And then I started again reading some more. And then what happens as you read some more is you get to the point where you go, there is someone usually who is paying to put this message in front of me if I am seeing it. Because the fight for our attention is won by who has the most money. So those who have the most money will get your attention the most. It's how elections are won. It's how news spreads. It's how people win. Even something like America's Got Talent, right? Britain's Got Talent, whatever it is. Literally, if you can think of it, chances are there's lots of money behind it, right? So that's the first thing I would say, is the first thing you have to realize is what is there has been almost always funded by someone to be in front of your face. So now it's our job to be like, who put it there and why do they want me to see it? Implicitly in that question is, why am I not seeing anything else? So if we're now talking about news, you have to go, okay, if they're going to pay for a specific something to be in front of my face, they've excluded everything else. So think of it like an art curator, right? In this gallery, we just want this to live today. But that means everything else got stopped at the door. Why? That's a good question to ask yourself. So you have to arm yourself with before we even get to like, how are they making me feel? It's like, what didn't make it? What is it that is not on their agenda to be here today that maybe I care about? Maybe I should know about, maybe I should feel something about. And then we get to, okay, cool. They've put this in front of me. Let's deal with this, right? Let's deal with what is happening today according to them. And that's how I phrase it, by the way, in my mind. It's not like this is what's happening in the world today. It's like, according to them, here's what's most important in what's happening in the world today. So even when I am faced with like a newspaper, it's like the headline is not the most important thing to me. It's just what they want me to think is the most important. So already I've called BS on the entire system. So we can see here as a recommendation to friends and family, what you could do is just have those blinkers on all the time. And it's exhausting, don't get me wrong, but they're relying on us being tired. So I'm telling you this as a friend, have the blinkers on all the time of like, I'm assuming this is BS. I'm assuming you have an alternate agenda. And I'm assuming you want to enrage me or get me to feel something negative, probably towards someone or something else. Right? Because then I don't have to address the thing that's happening here. So I think now to answer the question, because that's real all context, to answer the question of like, what is it that I do to figure out what's happening in the world, is that I have to figure out what it is I want to find out about. And then I have to scour lots of different news articles or whoever's posting about it. I'm not like precious as to right wing, left wing. I don't necessarily subscribe to that because they all tend to be funded by similar, if not the same people. So it tends to be a narrative that is co-opted by them anyways. So I just have to like figure out, okay, that's the facts of what happened here. Is a little bit more fact here. It's like tends to be like scattered. And then I end up kind of creating a mind map of like, okay, this is what's happened. So they don't want me to know this. They've put it at the very bottom of the article, but they do want me to think about it like this. So a really good recent example is the shooting of the Blackstone exec that happened in New York. So if we remember with the Luigi case that happened a few months ago, he's been accused of shooting some guy. And the way that was reported by the newspapers at the time, both right and left, is that there was a BlackRock CEO, and that's how they wanted us to empathize. They gave him a name. They were like, he lives in this house with these families, and they really thought we would empathize. It's all language, by the way, like as a communications major, not really a major, but it's just my job. The language is like, oh, we want to empathize with this guy. Little did they know, we don't really vibe with millionaires like that. So now they've learned their lesson, and they're like, okay, forget about the fact that she's a millionaire, because it seems that the Luigi thing might have triggered something we had no intention of glamorizing. But here, what we want you to pay attention to, if you look at all the headlines from both left, right, centrist, whatever you want to call them, it all starts with like Manhattan shooting, New York shooting, mass shooting in New York office. So can you see that the way they wanted us to think about it before was humanize this guy, BlackRock CEO, who's worked really hard, family man, Now that we don't want this to be the focal point, we want you now to think of it as a mass shooting in New York. Does that make sense? So the reality is being reported on, but it's being told to you in a slightly different way so that you focus on different things and forget about different things. So to remedy this, we think about what's been excluded, what's been included. Now that they've included it, what's it trying to trigger in me emotionally? Is it remorse? Is it fear? Is it empathy? Is it sympathy? Is it almost dismissal? Because a lot of the times it's that as well. And then you can figure out, okay, that's what they're trying to trigger in me. Let's see right through that, almost like a little adventurer, and be like, okay, what actually did happen? 4 people were shot, this person and this person and this person. And then this thing happened, and now we're here. And then you go, okay, that's what actually happened, but that's what they want me to think. So it's almost like hold this, it's like carry the one at all times. And the one is like the fallacy they need you to fall into. And then you're going, but I'm looking for solving. Like I'm solving. I hope that's helpful. Sorry, I went on a spiel.
No, that's great, because I actually even saw that there's articles that are skewing it so that we're dismissing the entire story as an NFL zealot.
Yeah, I saw something today on, I think what people call a left-wing one, which was MSNBC, which was like NFL put out a statement about the mass shooting. And I was like, but again, you can see like, yes, that did happen. Yes, more than 3-4 people died. Yes, those things, but the phrasing of it is so it lives in our mind exactly the way they need it to live. And again, if you just had lots of money, you'd be silly to not concoct reality, for me, in my opinion. Like, so we just have to go, okay, so be it. Let's figure out what we can do.
That's a great point. I'm going to come back to that, but I also want to talk about who has the money, which brings us to media and conglomerates. I have yes, perfect. Thanks, Iman. So this is a little dated, but these are the major media conglomerates here in Canada. So-called Canada. So Post Media bought out CanWest in 2010. There's Rogers, CTV, and Quebecor. Names may have changed as well, but you could want to maybe take a look at this link that I dropped in. There's also a very exhaustive list of the independent sources and platforms that are owned by conglomerates. And then I want to go deeper into Post Media. Just one more image that shows you it is now owned by an American hedge fund.
Yeah.
And so, as you can see, the National Post, Ottawa Citizen, Calgary Herald, which is where I am, Toronto Sun, Edmonton Journal, which is the capital of Alberta, where I am, Vancouver Sun on the west, the Gazette, it's in Quebec, and the province, I believe, I don't actually know where that is, but I think it's in the west somewhere. But now the West is quite much more leaning a certain narrative and favoring America as in certain ways. Calgary can be known as the Texas of Canada, but the politics of Florida, because we are very energy driven. Oil and gas is our major industry here. So there are a lot of assets that are owned by the states here too as well. But I see. Okay, maybe you want to read that out. You put in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. You're going to find the same in the US. You're going to find the same in the UK. But again, if we reverse engineer it, if you owned lots of capital, that's your business. Your business is just to own more money. Why would you not own the imagination of the public? And in order to own the imagination of the public, you have to curate the world in the way you need them to see it. And the way you do that is you say, I own, what you don't say I own, but you own right-wing news, left-wing news, and as much news as can cover ground as physically possible. That's what you do. So somewhere where I am in the UK, 3 companies own 90% of the UK's national newspaper market. That's online and offline. That's as of 2023. Okay. So again, 3 companies own 91% of the UK's newspapers, both online and offline. And the people who own these 3 companies have exactly the same interests. Because if you have that much money, you have the same interests as the same person who has that much money. It's essentially just how it would work, right? So again, it's that thing of, we know these facts. They're never going to tell us these facts and be like brazen about it. So now that we know it, we go, now what, right? How do we, as people consuming this, say, to a certain extent, I'm going to reject this, but I am going to try and look for the truth somewhere, right? Because they still have, you could say, a moral duty, as far as we want to say, that this works. And by the way, this has been going on for more than 50, 60 years. So I'm really grateful that you put up the acquisition of all of those papers. But essentially what's been happening is that big media conglomerates have been not only, so it's twofold, buying out Labour-led not Labour, but like it used to be Labour, Labour-led newspapers, etc. They've been doing that for a while. But also what they've been doing is they've been raising the bar to entry. So you were unable to start a newspaper unless you had lots of capital. So by raising the bar to entry, you've already limited who can even tell you the news. So it's a double whammy. And so again, us being in this perfect storm where people now have the ability to tell you what's going on the ground with a phone. They could just be like, well, that was a lie because I'm telling you. And those people, by the way, knew it was a lie when they would read news about themselves and be like, that's not true. Now we know it. Now there's almost like that cognitive dissonance where we have to read something on some news site and then look at our phone and be like, well, that's just not what's happening. And so now it's triggered this thing of like, but I can see the truth. So what have you been doing this whole time? And if they've been lying about that, they've been lying about that. So
okay.
Yeah, where we are.
I'm getting a note that we are having some questions coming in, but we will address those after this in a Q&A. Saffana, this is really important when we're watching and reading the news, no matter what source. How do we identify a certain leaning that it might be trying to incite in a headline?
I would say trust your gut is my quickest answer to that, because I think those of us who like study linguistics, we can look at it and be like, I can see it. I can see the verb and the noun use and the way that they've conjugated that. Like the fact that they've said mass makes me want to dismiss it. Like we can point it down to a word. But I would say read a thing and then just look at what you're feeling. And honestly, it will be a like snap judgment, and they know this, right? So the reverse of this is like NLP, right? So where we use these kind of like language programming tips to make our brain think certain things. People know this, they've studied this. So I would say, rather than having to learn linguistics all over, read a headline and analyze verb and noun usage, read a thing, pause and figure out what they're trying to make you feel. And I'll be very honest, a lot of the times it's rage. Yeah. It's an instant rage. It's an instant like outrage sometimes. And sometimes it is pure dismissal. So just figure that out and then go, okay, that's what they're trying to make me feel. Now let's read it to understand what's happened. Read it a second time to figure out what's happened, because you're going to switch from something called first brain into second brain, right? So our brains have different gears. One of them is just to perceive and just kind of, autopilot. And then there's another gear where we actively have to engage our brain and into thought. And I say it again, I know it's exhausting, I'm really sorry, but they're relying on us being tired. They're relying on us being like distracted. They're relying on us just kind of taking their word for it because it's the easier thing to do. And that's how they've been getting away with it for so long. So it's in our best interest to do the harder thing. Read it, reflect on your feels, read it again to discern what's actually happening, then proceed. That's what I recommend.
So, like as we are media consumers, what is our role to shape what gets more attention and how to be more critical about it? I know that is a whole entire other world of linguistics, but being able to identify who is being centered, who is being dehumanized, possibly, who is being seen as the good person, and setting us in a very binary way of looking at a situation. How do you illuminate that on an extra level of instinct?
I think that's a tough one, because it's gonna have to be up to pattern recognition. Like it's and that's my best go at like trying to summarize how I would do it, because I don't think it's one of those, like I'll give you an example. If I was just to read like an article by Fox News, right? We're going to use America as a case point because I feel like we're both fluent in their lingo, because they're so their laundry's out. Whereas I feel like the Brits have a little more shame around the fact that the BBC is so biased now. But let's say we read something like Fox News. It's going to take me maybe 3, 4, 5 articles and maybe some comparison to be like, oh, they're so much more biased. So I think that comparative literature piece may come as a point of pattern recognition. And that's if like you're not studying the language. That's if you're just kind of reading it on impact. Otherwise, your other bet is to study the language and be like, why are they all of a sudden harking on the loss of this life of this NYPD officer who was called Islam in the case of the Blackstone murder. And that's not usually their vibe. It's like they must have an agenda. Like we can't trust, right? So if the default is doubt, when you begin to read it, you will spot patterns and be like, that's their agenda. And again, it's because it takes so much time. I think literally it's almost like an extracurricular activity at this point, where you would read a thing and then go, okay, this is what this person's trying to make me think and feel and do. And then it's going to be practice, and you're just going to have to keep spotting patterns. Like every time I've seen something from The Guardian, it's been like they've been telling me to think about it in a specific way. And then and then once you keep doing that, I think it'll snowball into an awareness that you actually can't avoid, even if you tried to. But it will have to begin and be rooted in lots of active reading, and that's it will then be unavoidable.
I think I may be guilty of it as well, reading sources that echo my sentiments and my biases, because everyone has a bias. But going back to the comment that just came up about how an image, so I'm just going to read it. The Vietnam War ended over imagery, but it doesn't seem that's the case now. Some people argue because there is so much outrage over little things that big things don't get noticed. That's from Iman. Thank you, Iman. And what are your thoughts about, I mean, this is a major reason also why this conversation is so important, Saffana, because we're constantly being bombarded, seeing and flooded with images of the genocide in Gaza and in Sudan and Congo, and yet there's still quite a strong opinion that it's not a genocide specifically in Rafah, and that of course there's another opinion of going back always to the certain talking points of like, what about October 7th? What about yeah. So how I know a lot of good people who are seeing this in a very binary way, and having a hard time reconciling with the images that are proof and evidence, as well as the IJC clearly marking this as a war crime. And I'm wondering how, that's a very big question, but how are we still at a point where it's not a consensus?
I think this is where this conversation is more timely than if we had it before, because I think the result of what we're seeing is the people who own the ability to shape the story are running out of people who agree with them, but they still cannot admit that they are wrong. They're not able to, because it goes against their interests. I'll put it in another way. If the people, so let's say these people work in one office. If everyone in that office, their only job is to create that newspaper, those three buildings, right? Their only job is to create every newspaper, news outlet, da, 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 da. It only takes everyone in these buildings to concur, and the whole of the world can disagree, and they could still make us feel like we're not seeing reality correctly. That's the power they have. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because for us to be like, wait a minute, it means necessarily we have to agree that the three companies that own all of this stuff have almost been taking us for mugs the entire time. And this is why I'm saying it's a domino, because you go, if they've been lying about this and this and this, what else have they been lying about? And that is a question so big for adults, because we've been alive for a very long time. You have to start asking very, very big questions about, am I wrong in this? Was I right in that? Like, it's a real unearthing and unlearning, if we're going to go with the Unlearning Channel. It's a real big question. It's a big adult question of like, where else were they lying? And I believed them, because that's the other bit that's implied, right? Because by virtue of you having believed the stuff that you were told for decades and decades and decades, you have to then start asking yourself bigger and bigger and bigger questions. So it's easier for a lot of people to be like, even if it's just, like I say, even if it's just people in this building, these three companies telling you the same, and you're looking at reality. You can observe the reality, but you'll be like, but these guys, and they know this. They know this. That's why they've spent so much money on this. That and again, if you had that much money, why else would you buy anything else apart from my imagination? It doesn't make sense, because for you to ask me to do anything after that, if you didn't own my imagination, I wouldn't say yes. But if you had my imagination, if you had the ability to concoct reality, even though I can see you're lying, it's perfect. So then we get to, I don't understand how they trust and believe that people can see the reality. And we just have to wait for them to come to terms with it, because the thing they're coming to terms with is not the reality that this is genocide, because they know this in their heart of hearts. That's just the thing they're looking at, and they're going, okay, baby shouldn't be that starved. That doesn't make any sense. I can literally see the IOF person say they're looking for young babies to, etc., etc. You can see that. That's not deniable. This is real stuff. The thing we're waiting for them to contend with a lot of the times, if I'm being honest, is, if this is a lie, what else have I believed that is a lie? And what does that mean for me and my identity? And to take people away from their identity as a big grown up is a very big thing. So that's what we're dealing with right now. It's a big amount of cognitive dissonance that you're seeing, I think. But again, like, it's that thing that lots of us could foresee like 20 months ago, where we were like, this is all going to be very embarrassing in the future. People are going to pretend that they were on side with the goodies the whole time and they never fell for it, but we can see because we've got a digital footprint. That's a whole other conversation, but we're going to wait for them. It's a moment of humility that it's going to take, and it's going to come to them in the middle of the night where they're like, wait a minute. But it'll come. I have no doubt it'll come.
That's a really good point about being, well, I mean, I'm going to ask you this, because this is what drew me to your Instagram account, Saffana Banana, for those of you who are looking.
Very serious.
It was your voracious reading and annotating that helped me also understand and have tools on how to explore content in a deeper way. And I'm wondering, like, for in guiding your choices for the books that you read, and this is also another big question, but does decolonizing guide some of the work, like the books that you choose?
Yeah, but again, for me, it's like a slice, because even in how do I say this? I feel like it's difficult to say. I'm always very conscious of a label. Like, I'm just like, to just call it colonial almost dwarfs what it was. So yes, yes is the short answer, but I would never call it that. I would literally, like, almost the unlearning, I would just call it of like just ripping out of the floorboards. So some of it was colonial and some of it was other things. Because if I'm being perfectly frank, I'm a visible Muslim who lives in the UK, and I did most of my schooling while lots of people did not like Muslims very actively. So I was told to hate myself in more than one way. I was told I was wrong in my thoughts and beliefs in more than one way. I was told I came from backwards trains of thoughts in more than one way. So therefore, I imparted many terrible thoughts and beliefs about myself in more than one way. So yes, colonial, yes. But to me, that almost like limits it to being like that stuff back there is still impacting us. And it's like, no, it's current. It's still they're still doing the damage. It's not like they did the damage back then, they colonized and then they left, and now we have to be like, there's still evidence of this. No, it's not that there's evidence of this, is that there's active harm being done now onto people all the time, all the places. So yes, I am interested in like, how did colonial good, great. But that's just like one layer I have to like peel off to really be like, who is Saffana? If she doesn't subscribe to like, you're wrong, this is awful, you're from the baddies, etc., etc. And so lots of my reading is met with such skepticism, because these people who lots of the times write the books that I love, and I'm very honest about that on the internet as well, like a lot of the times the people who write the books that I love are like white men, and I'm always like, I don't know if this white man would have liked me if he was still alive, like RIP my favorite copywriters, but like if they would have met me, I don't think they were writing the book for me. I think they were writing the book. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, if I'm being real frank, like, yeah, cool, decolonize, but like also the people who wrote the books that are saying, oh, I'm sorry about that thing in the past, would still hate me in the office in the future. So like there's more than one thing to contend with, and it's a real life contending. And we know this as like women of color who like walk into offices. Like, it's not back then, it's now. Like, I'm dealing with Craig now. Like, he's not in some theory book. He's sitting across from me telling me I shouldn't be correcting his copy. Like, so yeah, so read books, yeah, decolonize, yeah, but also like just be very aware of like, if it's mainstream, usually it's like helpful. It's helpful for someone's narrative, usually, if you didn't pick the words, usually.
Yes.
Sorry if that went on spiel. Can you see?
No, that is so.
I white labeled Craig, but we know him.
Yeah. Sorry, Craig, but not really. So that is part of the reason why I asked that, Saffana, because as a Filipino person whose parents moved here and benefiting from stolen lands, and also leaving a country that was overexploited. I do not call the Philippines a third world country because it's third to what? And it's not underdeveloped. We have one of the richest biodiversities on the planet that's been overexploited, and not many people know that there was a genocide at like 1898 committed by the states, like 300,000 Filipinos in the name of imperialism. And I'm saying this because like time sanitizes a lot of history, as well as having an American Ministry of Education installed in the Philippines. So many people arrive like Filipinos specifically, not questioning the history or the how we've been shaped to be kind of pro-American. But those who also have that lens, who have been part of a resistance, understand that. So that guides the reading. And also like Psikolohiang Filipino, I'm just saying that because that's also a decolonized psychology that has also helped me guide a lot of the work that's on the Unlearning Channel. So I'd like to also ask you, while we are consuming all of this content, now AI, this monstrous beast, is now reshaping very quickly and easily the content that is available to us. And how are you also, okay, so instinct and trusting your gut. At the same time, like, it's getting pretty slick. Like the hands are now getting pretty good on AI images. How are you distinguishing that from real news? And yeah, I'll start there.
I think so. Distinguishing it from real news, again, it's just that thing of, you have to meet it with so much skepticism. So it meets the same defense barrier as a real piece of news would, like a piece of news that would have come out of a news corporation. It's met with the same skepticism, right? And then you have to do that due diligence next step of what are the numbers saying? Where is this rooted in any kind of reality? And the biggest question that's going to come out of all of this AI stuff is, what are they trying to make you feel? Like, really and truly, what are they trying to make you feel? And a lot of the times you will get to the common denominator of lots of this AI material that's being pumped out is that it is to make you react, not respond, but react. And so I would say your defense is the defense against anything else. It's before you react, really, figure out what they're trying to make you feel. And then if you do suspect it's AI, which I always just suspect it's rubbish anyways, I don't suspect it. Before AI was just mine, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. I worked in those offices and you can't believe them. You just honestly, and as a side note, I would just say to anyone who's listening, like, if you went in these rooms, you really would believe, you would trust your gut so much more. Because these are people who've like come out of uni. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's no offense to anyone who's come out of uni, but if you've not even done uni, you've just done life for a few more years, there is no person smarter than the other. Like, it's an equal playing field, and it's just a mess that we're taking their word for it. There's no other way that I can say that to you. It is preposterous, because if you met this person on the tube and they just told you the stuff that they wrote down, you would never believe it. You'd be like, that doesn't make sense. So I think read it with the skepticism, because what they're relying on is, if they put a fancy logo, they put this little label called like eyewitness, and you're just going to believe it. Do not believe it at face value. It really, and then get to the whole thing of, it makes it difficult. Because it's never been clear. I think what I want people to come away with is, it's never been clear. If you worked in media and journalism, the truth has never been clear. From a journalism perspective, from a political perspective, even down to a philosophical perspective, there has never been a black and white truth and fiction. There has always been, what story can you tell to the people in this country? That's all it's ever been. And so what we're seeing is now just that on speed because of AI, right? So again, it's almost like a message of hope that I want to give you. Like, it really is just, we've seen this before. What we have now at our disposal is BS detectors that are inside. If you learn this stuff, it's much better for you. And it would have been good to have that a while ago. But keep the gut, for real, man, because and always click through to the links. They're relying on you being lazy. Click through to the sources, click through to where it's come from, read up and see what it's trying to be like. Oh, this is evidence. Just click through to that. AI can't manufacture evidence. And a lot of the times it gets all its stats wrong and all of this stuff. So click through to the things they believe you will just believe at face value. Never believe it at face value. Just spend some, if it's ignited any kind of big feelings, honestly, doubt is the default. Thank you so much, Rachel. Doubt is honestly the default, and we love a little bit of alliteration. Doubt is the default. Honestly, make it be your modus operandi when consuming any media. Doubt it, then proceed. But click through to the links, because they don't believe you're ever gonna click through it. Read it to the end if it's ignited feelings in you, and do that job of discernment, because they're believing that you won't. They're relying on you being lazy and distracted. That's what they're relying on. And trust me, I know them. I know them. So they are.
Thanks for that. So there's so much I want to ask you. We have 15 minutes, but maybe we should open it up to questions. Is that okay?
More than fine. Yeah, we're happy. Okay.
Oh, there's a good one.
That's so many. What books shaped your view and or sharpened your media? Should we start with media literacy skills first?
Yes.
So Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death is really good for just figuring out what's happening with the medium is the message and all of this stuff, figuring out how they pick the medium to tell you the thing and therefore concoct your reality by literally just entertaining you. Then you've obviously got Manufacturing Consent. That's a really good one to just understand what's been happening with press. I think it's slightly outdated, no offense to Noam, but I think even he knows this. But it's in its essence, it tells you that press has been hijacked by those who have a lot of money and the powers that be. So they paint the world in a very specific way. And he gives you loads of heartbreaking but factual case points in his words, so you don't think it's conspiracy. So that's obviously like the 101, and this is the 101, I would call it. Beyond that, anything to do with writing well and writing clearly is really good. My favorite, I always say, is How to Write Clearly by Tom Albrighton. I really like anything by Joseph Sugarman is very good for writing copy, for understanding the psychology behind why we act in the way we act. Influence by Robert Cialdini is very good. There is also a book called The Choice Factory, I think by some guy called Richard Shotton, something like that, which is like a breakdown of this. And influence is just kind of like the 7 psychological levers that make us believe and think and do and buy stuff. It's very good for understanding like the psychology behind it. I always use his work in like pro-Palestine stuff as a kind of dig to Daniel Kahneman. There's this guy called Daniel Kahneman who won a Nobel Prize for work that questionably is his ? But it's called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's a good way to understand where we live in our susceptible mind and where we don't. And I think when I teamed that idea up with some media and marketing knowledge, I was like, that's what they're relying on. They're relying on us being passive. So he explains that very well. I don't think the rest of his book is fabulous, but I just think that bit's really good. And that's media and marketing and literacy. And then beyond that, when it comes to my worldview, I find, being very honest, like the Islamic texts, I like, it's there's this whole thing of like capitalism and what is the worldview and da 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 da. I'm just gonna be super honest and just be like, I don't subscribe to any of it, because it's lots of these other books I read, I'm just like, okay, there we go, justice, oh, and it just simplifies a lot of stuff for me. And it's helped me, like I say, like think past the labels that people put on things. Like even when we do say something like capitalism, it's a label about a whole bunch of systems that is simplistic, but really this is what I'm talking about. Like the fundamentals are this. Even when I talk about colonialism, it's a shorthand for loads of other things, but it doesn't really sit in my worldview neatly. It's not neat, but it informs. I hope that's helpful. How can we improve awareness about the importance of media literacy? How can we improve awareness about the importance of it? To be honest with you, it's almost like a doom and gloom of like, what's the opposite? That's how I do it. Is like, if you're not going to be aware of media literacy, then just be content with just believing whatever garbage they tell you. And that's almost like what I say to people. And if I'm being honest, like it's that thing of like, either you want to make the effort, and if you don't and can't, then I would tell you very, very, very frankly that the alternative is you just believe whatever they tell you. And if you're content with that, just believe whatever they tell you, then do it. Because I'm not it's tiring to do anything else. Is there such a thing as unbiased media? We know the American side, but I feel that every nation has some kind of bias. Yeah, I don't think it's a nation thing. And this is what I'm talking about. Like my worldview goes way beyond like, oh, this is American, this is British. Like, again, it's that thing of like, people who have money will do this thing. And you can call them American, you can call them capitalist, you can call them whatever you want, but I don't think that label's very useful. Even like when I come to the thing of like, what is America really? Like, what is a country really? It doesn't make sense. So like these labels don't really make sense. It's just an attribute that we've given to a thing to make us be like, oh, this is a binary. It's not. So when we say like about this person's side, like this country's side, it's just a place that's run by a whole bunch of corporations. And most places now are lines drawn in the sand that are ruled by a corporation, that they need you to be like, abide by these rules because it's the simplest way to rule a people. So there's no such thing as unbiased. I don't believe that. So like I say, you're looking for a thing that doesn't exist, in my opinion, because you're asking a human to report just facts, and you would never consume just facts. You need someone to tell you a story. Innately, by definition, a story has a narrative. And if it has a narrative, it has a bias, because it's going to tell you about this thing and not this thing. It's going to focus on this person's tragedy and not this person's tragedy. It can only do so much, right? So by definition, almost by the exclusion factor, by saying this is important and that's not important, there's already bias included. So what's made it through the gate is already biased before they've even created a story. Now that they've created a story, it's up to you to be like, this is the fact from the fiction, and then you're going to pick apart that. Yeah, is journalism dying field considering all of this? I don't think it's dying. I think it's just metamorphosing into, do we want justice or do we want clickbait? is the thing. I think if we have a higher threshold of what we demand, which is justice, people will do it. I think, again, to say like, there was a point I think, Jax, you made earlier of like, can we have an impact, or are we changing things, or like we're trying to look for the right and between the wrong and whatever. But like, I think that the way that they changed the reporting about the Blackstone executive versus what happened with Luigi is testament to the fact that they are afraid of the way we act. So it's testament to the fact that what we do has impact. The fact, I've said this before, I feel like, but this is the least clickbait, the most real thing. These three companies who own 91% of the newspapers would not bother if our acts, if our thoughts were inconsequential. By definition, they overspend on this because our thoughts, our beliefs, our acts, and our reactions have direct consequences to their power. Otherwise, they would not spend a penny silencing us. It would be inconsequential. They would let us run amok. So by definition, you reading and discerning is the quickest way to your freedom, because it will insist that these three companies do something different with their money and your attention. Okay, I hope that's helpful. How is authenticity being manufactured? It's been manufactured. Ooh, goodness gracious me, that's such a big question. How it's been manufactured. I'd start with saying right and left. Like, what does that mean anymore, really, if they're owned by the same person? Authenticity has been manufactured for a very long time. Celebrity culture, entertainment, movies is a very good way. Like, if you look at who owns media, like newspapers, they a lot of the times have big stakes in Warner Brother, Disney, Marvel, all of anything you can name that really captures your attention. They have paid so much money to be there. So authenticity is such a lame word, because once you see how much money goes into this, go in those buildings. These buildings are crazy. I'm telling you, they really open my eyes. It's honestly, if it lives in your brain, I'm telling you now, if it lives in your brain, someone has paid so much money to be there, because your brain is prime real estate. And it is your job, I believe, I think you asked this previously, but I believe genuinely our responsibility is to curate what's in our brain as if it were an art gallery. That means unearthing all the crap that they've told you and really unearth it, like really, really dig deep. I think someone said in the comments, like, it's annoying that people don't want to do this. But if like, trust and believe, if you do it, people will follow your example. And I didn't believe that. But look at where we are. Look where we are, Jaqs. Look where we are. So have hope. You have nothing else. Absolutely. You have to have hope, because you can't afford to not. Is the honest truth. You can't afford to not, because they're relying on you being hopeless too. So
it's part of it.
You say, man, you can be authentic. Just because they're not authentic, that's not your standard of humanity. Your standard of humanity is your own. Your brain is your own, to not be curated by them. Curate it as if you were literally like a curator of an art gallery, right? This is what I want to live in my brain. This is the way I need to perceive the world. These are the facts. This is what lives here. This is what is great. This is what is big. And I think I said it today in my Substack. I was like, you shouldn't care about Blake Lively. By definition, your neighbor's breakfast is of more importance to you than Blake Lively. So it doesn't make sense that Blake Lively takes up space in your brain, but you don't know what your neighbor had for breakfast, because literally by definition, that has more impact on you. Anyways, how can we further support the message and what you're doing? Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that question. I have officially, because people have asked me, I've officially now started a place where you can support. Some people have already pledged already, so it's not on the site, which is why the target looks different. But you can support and pledge to create this media literacy course that I'm trying to get as accessible as physically possible. And that looks like something fun and engaging and not supported by a brand and not supported by a news corporation and not biased in any way, just made by people who really want people to consume media in the right way. I'm looking to put together a really nice curriculum, get an illustrator, a videographer, and an editor who are paid nicely, because this is not, we pay people their dues here. That's what we do, specifically because I know there are probably going to be people of color who care about this. You can fund it, because we're going to put some advertising money behind it when it comes, and then you can access it for free. There's some nice goodies and treats for people who pledge certain amounts, but that is the link if you would like to support. It's completely optional. Otherwise, on the internet, you'll just find me talking about media. Also, if you are a charity, this is very much if you are a charity. I think, Jaqs, you mentioned, thank you so much for mentioning in the beginning, my actual day job, so the thing I actually do for companies, I specifically keeping it to NGOs and charities for obvious reasons, even though the private sector was lovely. If you are an NGO or a charity, I run the course that essentially helps NGOs and charities get their media and marketing and specifically communications where it needs to be, so it's on par with other sectors, really and truly, because they don't put enough money behind it. So I've done it at a cost that is a fraction of what it would be. So yeah, if you are an NGO or a charity, that's the place to go for you. If you want to support the media literacy work, that's the place for you. If you just want to consume media literacy work, just look up Saffana Monajed on the internet. I think I'm the only one in the world. So I'm the only Saffana Monajed in the world. I always say, if you don't find me, it's on purpose.
And please feel free to ask questions for those who are watching and listening in as well. This is another question too. This is part of what you said about curation as we consume. Of course, having a cap on like how much you consume every day would be helpful. Taking media breaks, but not totally turning off because like we still need to be plugged in. What are your recommendations for people who are citizens generating content out there, who have social capital and are influencing in their circles?
First of all, do it because they're relying on you being silent. And when I say they, so the thing that got me into the sphere of people's even brain, by the way, is I created these videos a long time ago about if I were marketing a genocide, what would I do? And if I were marketing a genocide, what I would do is I would look for the people of influence who have jobs in influential places, and I would scare them into silence. I would just get a few people to lose their jobs, and I would tell you it's very bad for you if you were to speak up. And my proof point for that is those who have influence are afraid to speak up, but they have a very specific fear that other people without influence do not have. So therefore, by definition, I would say this fear has been put in your brain by the pro-genocide marketing team, and it's almost completely made up. So I just want to alleviate that, and I just want to tell you, by definition, you've been got by their marketing machine. But fret not, because they spend almost billions on it, so don't worry about it, you're only human. So now, to address that, know that by definition, if you are afraid to speak up, that means you should speak up. That means they are afraid of you speaking up because you would have impact. So your duty is to speak up. That's what I would say to you, because by definition, they've reached you with their message, and you can see how that logic flows. Now, in order to speak up, you would just say, first of all, so this is your duty goes like this. You say it with your mouth. I oppose this. This is horrible. This is da-da-da-da. This is da-da-da. Next thing you can do, next stage, is you can vote with your wallet. For example, if you were to go on holiday, you'd go, I'm not going to pick Airbnb. I'm going to pick this person instead and stay with them because I don't want to put my money there. If I am hosting my website on Wix, I'm going to remove it from Wix. I'm going to be like, it's because you are blah, 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 blah. I'm going to tell people to not buy this. I'm going to tell people to buy this instead if they were consuming. And then the next step is make that all part of your vernacular. So like popular culture. And what I've been saying to my friends is just make common the ew. And by that, I mean, very simply, if someone goes, I'm going to get a drink from Starbucks, you just go, ew, that's disgusting. We don't do that. I'm going to get a McDonald's. Ew, that's disgusting. Because by virtue of you having social capital, you can yuck their yum. And when you yuck their yum, that makes it into social vernacular. And then you can have actual social impact. It's very easy. You have loads that is at your disposal that doesn't put your job at jeopardy.
Wonderful. You can also go to BDS. Yes, the website.
Read up.
You know that. I just want to let everybody know who's watching. This will be posted up online on LinkedIn and as well on the YouTube site for the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation and other sites. We will put them up wherever you found this. And so, yeah, we have a few more minutes, but I would love to have more questions coming in if you're here.
May I just say to Leno Meno, they've just said, I do feel hopeless, but it's good to keep myself informed during my time in this dunya and do my part. Now, you've said the word dunya, so I'm assuming you know your shahada. If you know your shahada, I'm just going to say this to you that my husband said to me a little while ago. He said, if you believe in words like dunya, etc., it goes like this. If you know that Yom al-Qiyamah is about to come and you have a plant seed and you go, oh, but it's the end of times, your job is to plant that seed. That's your job. Your only duty is that. So I appreciate that you are helpless and you feel hopeless. I appreciate that. But know that as an act of defiance, your hope is rebellion. And I pray that you find the courage to always do that. Just plant that seed, baby girl.
Resistance is love. That's how we survive. That's how we're still here.
We can do it. We can do it, man. We can do it. And if humans did it, we can undo it. Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That was so good.
That was really so bad, good. Actually.
I could do a Canadian if we're going to play that game. But anyways, it's good. We set what social acceptable. We do set what's socially acceptable. We do, Joseph. We do. And Zionism is not socially acceptable.
No, it is not. And having conversations is really important as well. Being brave to have those conversations in a gentle way that people can feel safe to listen to you, because like people care about people when it comes down to it. If they're your friends and they hear what you're positing, what the position that you're taking, that human life is valuable, like that's just bar none. Like that's the standard. We will understand that genocide is not acceptable.
I would say, Brian, yes, a one-on-one conversation is wonderful. And the reason a one-on-one conversation is wonderful is because you can have impact in a one-on-one conversation in a way that you may not be able to socially. To the point where I would say, if I were able to, I would have more one-on-one conversations. But my circle is such that there's no need. And I'm self-employed, so I don't get that privilege. But no, trust and believe that those of us who would. And so I would honestly see it as a privilege and as an honor, because you don't know what's going to happen out of that one-on-one conversation. And I would say meet them with grace and meet them with the kind of that thing, exactly like you said, Jaqs, is like humans. It is hard to have one-on-one conversations with racists. I would say is hard. It does take a mental toll. Do obviously preserve some of your mental health, but know that it's still an honor to be able to do that if you have the ability.
Here's a great question by Manda. Interested to hear how you approach independent media. Is there a bias?
Yeah, I would still say it's going to be a bias in the way that, again, the way they curate their media. So like what has made it in and what has made it out is always of paramount importance to me. It's like, why have you done this and not this? Because then that necessarily means that that's their sources, right? Because if I think about how a story ended up there, is you have different sources. So why is your source different? Which like specialists or experts are you relying on? So that's my first check. So when we say independent media, their sources are different, and I'm always interested in that. The bias that I'm going to look for is just the way that they're going to tell me the story. It may be less because, again, they just have less to lose and gain by me believing something special or something specific, should I say. So it's less because they have less stake in my outcome, but it will always have a bias because we can't really write without bias.
Even public created media has bias. I mean, we have the CBC that's a very large content creator here, as you have the BBC. It definitely has its own agenda, whether it's silent and when it's saying something. So
yeah, and also like just speaking of the BBC, I think it's that's that thing of like the benefit of the doubt should not be given to the BBC. Like there's no the country that if it's called the British Broadcasting Communications, Britain has not done enough goodness for us to give it the benefit of the doubt. So the clue is in the name. So when people are like, what about I'm like, what about it? Show me the goodies. How have they been the goodies? Because as far as I'm concerned, that's why we're unlearning, because they did so much baddies and they're still going, no, but it's goodies. So like, yeah, I don't give it the benefit of the doubt. If it's got mass reach, it can do mass brainwash. That's how it works. I would do my best to own it if I had money. and they're very clever, very clever.
I do want to come back to what you said about how we do have power as consumers, because that hopelessness is also adding to the just ignoring the boycotts, ignoring the calls to action. If we feel hopeless, then we won't be activated. So feeling like you actually do make a difference with your consumer choices is so powerful.
It's not even that you make it. It's not even like I want to be like, don't worry, you make it. Like, you make such a difference, you scare the crap out of them. That I want you to know that. I want you to know that the fact that you can vote with your wallet strikes fear in their hearts. So why would you not? Like, that's what you have. That's your, and again, it befits them and it benefits them to make it be like, oh, you don't have power. Like, that's what a wonderful thing. If we were just to surrender, they can't imagine a better day. Don't make their day. Right. Don't do that.
Right. Like the bare minimum. Even Starbucks, come on, like they burn their beans. You don't want to buy that.
It's really, honestly, don't do that. And they, you know what? It's doing such a good job that they're scared to report to you just how good it is. Because if they knew, it would start a flywheel and people would be doing it more. So trust that, again, they will. There's that age-old thing of the revolution will not be televised. They will not tell on themselves. They will not. There we go. Ew. Starbucks. Ew. No, but seriously, yuck they are, man. Yuck it all the way. Just be like, ew. Just look at people. Go in Starbucks and be like, ew. If you have not go in, but you see what I mean? Like, walk past like, ew. Yeah, absolutely vote with your wallet. I would vote with my wallet before I voted in an election, by the way. Like, that makes much more stronger say.
Well, you are voting with your consumer choices.
Yes, and they only speak money.
Universal language of capitalism.
And if you have more of it, you're much more fluent. So they'll understand. They'll pick it up very quickly if you stop spending. It's genuinely the way to crash it all.
Oh, thanks everybody. This is so we're at an hour, but we'll if you have like 7 more minutes, we'll just have to finish off the Q&A. But thank you everybody. We'll be posting up we have the links posted up, and when we put it up, we'll add Saffana's links. And please follow us on the Unlearning Channel on Instagram, as well as iHeartRadio. As it is not like we're on the other channels that I'm not going to say, and I'm not mentioning them. I've divested from platforms that contribute to funding a genocide. So yeah, just make good choices. Be intentional with how you buy and who you give your attention to and your energy to. Thanks so much, everybody. Curate. Yeah.
Are there more questions?
Yeah. Any more questions?
Okay. Is that at the end? Are we? I don't know.
That's it. Unless there's more questions. If there's one more question, we'll take it. Yeah. Okay.
Fabulous.
Yes, I do want to thank Iman Bukhari from the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. Thank you so much. And everybody who's come online here to ask questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.